Put your seatbelts on, because this is going to be a long one. Alright. For those of you who want the entire video game explained, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to explain the entire thing. I've been a Metal Gear Solid fan since 1998, and I understand that the Phantom Pain leaves a lot of questions. I will be spoiling Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, and Metal Gear Solid 4, and Metal Gear Solid 5 for this, as well as Peace Walker. For those of you who haven't played it, you have been warned. Massive, massive spoilers. Okay, now at the end of the Phantom Pain you get the epilogue, which is not really an epilogue. It's not called an epilogue, but it's an epilogue. You meet Paz in the medical bay, and she tells you all these things, and Ocelot and Miller are there, and then you find out that it's not true, that she was dead, and that Big Boss imagined the entire thing. You also get the Paz tapes, and in the Paz tapes she again lets you know that it was all an imagination, and Big Boss is crazy. So what that does really is it retcons the entire game, because we have a protagonist we can't trust who is crazy. He's suffering mental problems, and I believe these mental problems stem from the fact that Paz died, and Big Boss goes insane over that. And in order to deal with it, in order to cope with it, he creates the medic as an alternate persona, because surely if he was the medic and if he was searching Paz for those bombs, he would have found them. So he creates the medic as an alternate persona so that he doesn't feel as guilty. And if you see the cutscene during those Paz scenes in which the medic finds the second bomb, that makes it so that Paz survives. And that is the biggest thing for Big Boss. That is what is upsetting him. If you remember in Peace Walker, you can date her and you love her and you have relations with her. Paz is Big Boss's mental problem. It stems from that, from the fact that Paz blew up and the way that she died. So he splits himself in two, and we're playing as Venom Snake, as the alternate reality, and that's what this entire game is. It's an alternate reality. It's not the truth. So since this game is not the truth, and for those of you that have read 1984, the Ministry of Truth and the persons that are supposedly telling you the truth are lying to you. That's why this game is lying to you. That's another connection. But I have seen the truth, and I'm willing to share it with you. So without further ado, I have 30 minutes. If you're willing to wait it out, tough it out with me, then here we go. First and foremost, Skullface is Zero. If you remember the scene in Ground Zeroes in which Skullface is torturing, I gotta take some pain because my head hurts. I've been thinking about this too much. My head hurts. But I got it down. You know, I went crazy playing the game as well. And for the old school fans that played the game that felt like something is off, it's because Big Boss is crazy. Big Boss is crazy in this game. Skullface is Zero. Give me a second.
Analysis complete.
Just took some leave.
Complete.
Big Boss is Zero. No, not Skullface is Zero. Big Boss is Big Boss. The reason I state Skullface is Zero is because when you first meet Skullface, you find him in OKB0. Now, that just sounds like the random name of a base, but it actually stands for OKB0, as in OK becomes Zero. Skullface is Zero. If you remember in Ground Zeroes at the end, Skullface is torturing Paz and trying to find out where Zero is. But that's actually Zero torturing Paz and trying to find out where Big Boss is. Because if you remember at the end of Peace Walker, it turns out that Paz was in cahoots with Zero the entire time. And she knows where Big Boss is. Zero doesn't. So Zero tortures Paz and Chico and finds out the location of Big Boss's mother base, and then Zero goes and attacks said mother base. Again, anything after Ground Zeroes is a hallucination. It's not real. Big Boss is insane. That's why we're all going insane. That's why we're having a problem dealing with this video game, because it doesn't add up to the story that we're told, and at the same time it kind of does, and it's making us feel crazy, and that's the point, because Big Boss is crazy. And so yeah, Skullface is Zero. When he gives that entire speech in the truck, that's not Skullface saying how he's going to take over the world. That's Zero saying how, excuse me, how he's going to live out the boss's legacy. Obviously, Big Boss interprets it in his own way, because to him that's not Zero anymore, that's Skullface, because Big Boss is insane and he doesn't want to believe that he's in a war with his old friend Zero, but he is. And that's evident because if you play Metal Gear Solid 4, Big Mama, aka Eva, states that Big Boss and Zero get into a war during the 1980s over the boss's will, over her final words when she passes. And this is that. Metal Gear Solid 5 is that time period in the 1980s where Zero and Big Boss are at war, but we're presented Big Boss and Skullface going to war, but that's not Skullface, that's Zero. And again, this stems because Big Boss is insane, and because the first time you meet Skullface, you meet him at OKB0. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, if you played Metal Gear Solid 1, you'll see at the end of Sniper Wolf's boss battle, when she dies, she says that she met Big Boss when she was a little girl. She was a baby girl. And the storyline states that Big Boss found her in the Middle East during the 1980s. We are in the Middle East in this game. We're playing as Big Boss and we find Dee Dee. Dee Dee is a metaphor for Sniper Wolf. Dee Dee and Quiet put together are a metaphor for Sniper Wolf. Quiet probably doesn't exist. I expect there to be huge retcons in the future, but as far as this game is concerned, it perfectly fits with the timeline if you're willing to think about it. It's not laid out for you, but it's still there. Big Boss finds Dee Dee in the middle of Afghanistan, just like he would find Sniper Wolf. Dee Dee is a young pup, newborn baby, basically, the same way that Sniper Wolf was, a young child. And Big Boss raises Dee Dee to be a soldier, just like he raised Sniper Wolf to be a soldier. Dee Dee is a metaphor for Sniper Wolf. And then when you do the Quiet missions, in which you have Quiet as a buddy, and she's sniping and killing everybody, that's Sniper Wolf. That's obvious because when you beat her extreme battle, you'll see that she's dressed as Sniper Wolf. That's another phantom of this game. A big thing of this game is phantoms. Phantoms is just another way of saying alternate personalities. As I stated already, Big Boss's alternate personality is Venom Snake. He believes himself to be the medic so he can get over the death of Paz, but he's not the medic. He is Big Boss. It's just a personality disorder that he has. Big Boss sees Skullface as being Zero, but it's Zero. That's just an alternate personality. And he sees Dee Dee as being Dee Dee, but that's Sniper Wolf. And here's one that I'm going to lose a lot of you guys on, but this is one that I want to spend the majority of my time on. Ocelot is Miller. They are one and the same. Hear me out. Now, I may be wrong about this, but I do not recall Ocelot and Miller having any conversations in the entirety of the Phantom Pain. I don't recall them talking to one another. I remember them talking to Big Boss, but I don't remember them talking to one another directly. So how can that be if Ocelot was in one place and then Miller was in another, right? And then you go and you rescue Miller. You don't rescue Miller, you rescue Ocelot. Okay, now Ocelot is a very polarizing figure in this franchise. And basically Ocelot in this game is a triple agent. He's a spy, being a spy. You know what I mean? Like he's spying on both sides of this war. He's spying on both Zero and Big Boss, because he actually works for the Philosophers, and the Philosophers are much bigger than Zero and Big Boss at this time. Obviously the Patriots overthrow them because they have the Philosophers' legacy, but Big Boss is one of the few members in the entire franchise. No, not Big Boss. Ocelot is one of the few members in the entire franchise to have worked with the Philosophers. Big Boss, Eva, and Ocelot, the Boss, and Eva were all members of the Philosophers during Metal Gear Solid 3. And it was only those three that, although they had their own allegiance to their own country, ultimately they were in cahoots with the Philosophers. And Ocelot is one of them who was in cahoots with the Philosophers. So now I hear you saying, how can Ocelot be Miller? That doesn't make sense. Why would he be both? He is both. And Big Boss sees him as being two different personalities because he doesn't want to get Miller construed with Ocelot. his mind doesn't want to register that during the Peace Walker incident he was with Ocelot that entire time, but it is Ocelot. If you read the Metal Gear Solid 4 database, you will find that it has Ocelot's biography, and in it from 1970 to 1975, which is the time of the Peace Walker incident, it says that Ocelot was working with Russia for the Spetsnaz. But then at the end of that paragraph, it says that was a lie, and that's because he wasn't working with Russia. He was working with Big Boss at the time, but he was being a double agent under the Patriots. He was also working with Zero, and he was there on a covert mission, so he couldn't tell him he was Ocelot because Big Boss wouldn't have let Ocelot in because they were at ends against each other during Metal Gear Solid 3. So he dresses up as Miller, he puts his shades on, and he pretends to be Miller. Miller doesn't exist. Miller has always been Ocelot. Oh, that was a load to get off my chest. Oh god, that felt great. Okay, so Miller's Ocelot. Big Boss rescues Ocelot, and they start Mother Base. This is done while Ocelot is working under the Patriots, working under Zero. Zero sends Ocelot to keep tabs on Big Boss. But the only reason Ocelot is with Zero in the first place is because the Philosopher sends him to keep tabs on Zero. So as you see, he's playing both sides of this field of this war, but ultimately he's actually playing the Philosopher side. He's an overarching theme to it. He's trying to make sure these two guys don't, you know, destroy the entire world or take over the world, as they're both planning to do under the will of the boss, and the boss was a philosopher. So the philosophers are there to make sure that these two don't misconstrue that and destroy the entire world. And how do they do that? They send one of their own. They send Ocelot. So Ocelot's working for Zero. Zero sends Ocelot to Big Boss.
Subject on board.
While he's with Big Boss, they build Mother Base, and then Zero finds out about where Big Boss is. This may be the time where Ocelot decides not to give information to Zero. So then Big Boss strikes Mother Base, brings Ocelot down. Ocelot's tripped out, but whatever, you know, he survives. Big Boss goes into a coma. Now when Big Boss is in a coma, Eli sends Psycho Mantis to make sure Big Boss survives, because Eli wants to meet his father. Eli is Liquid. So that's how they escaped that scene. The theory is obviously also based off this. The scene where the two soldiers are shooting at Big Boss and you have to shoot at them, they don't shoot at Ishmael at all. The scene in which Ishmael throws the silencer and says he'll run interference, and then jumps over the barricade and starts shooting, the guards don't notice Ishmael shooting at all. They only notice the silencer. That's because Big Boss threw the silencer as interference. During the hospital scene, Big Boss is going on soldier's intuition. He's going off of instinct. He's going off what his muscle memory reminds him to do. That's why when they say that they did massages on his body, it's very important, because you need to know that so that his muscle memory can still work. Now, with all of that said, Big Boss doesn't believe that he's able to do all these things on his own, because he doesn't have an arm. And it's very specific that everything he did with that robotic arm that he had during the hospital scene, he believes Ishmael does it. But it's not Ishmael, it's Big Boss. And that can also be Ocelot's own hypnotizing Big Boss while he's asleep to believe that he's two people. To misconstrue Big Boss like that, it's very possible. So, as we get to Mother Base, no, not Mother Base, Ocelot tells Big Boss to go get Miller or whatever, and Miller's in handcuffs. So Big Boss has to go in a horse, and he first has to get to this one town, gather intel, then go to this other town. Now, if you do that in the game, it becomes nighttime by the time you get to Guande. Usually, it'll take a while in game time. So you could say it took him a few hours, right? Ocelot leaves Big Boss there, hops in a helicopter, gets dressed up, goes to the building, and pretends to be Miller. Big Boss sees Miller without an arm and a leg. That's not real. Ocelot has both of his arms and his leg, but Big Boss is messed up mentally. So yeah, Ocelot is Miller. He pretended to be a whole other person so that he could be close to Big Boss under Zero's orders, and he's only working with Zero under the Philosopher's orders. And yes, Ocelot trained both Solid and Liquid Snake. This parallels the boss, who is Ocelot's mother, because when Ocelot trains Solid Snake, he's pretending to be Miller, and then when he trains Liquid Snake, he's pretending to be Ocelot, but he trains them both. And then in MGS 4, when Big Boss kills Ocelot, he's not killing a bad guy. Ocelot's not a bad guy. He's simply doing his mission. His mission that was probably put forth by the philosophers. So basically, Solid Snake, my bad. Solid Snake kills his mentor, Ocelot, much in the same way that Big Boss killed his mentor, the boss. So there you have it. That's the parallel there. Ocelot is Miller. Ocelot's always been Miller. When they say that they killed Miller and that Liquid took his personality or whatever, it's bullshit. They didn't kill Miller. Liquid just put on some sunglasses and pretended to be Miller. But it didn't kill him, because Ocelot is Miller. And Ocelot was working for Liquid the entire time. So there's no way he could have killed him. Besides, they never say that they found him dead. The person that tells you that is Campbell. And if you remember correctly, Metal Gear Solid 1 lies to you about a bunch of shit, especially Campbell. So more than likely the whole Master Miller is dead thing was just to throw you off the fact that Ocelot is Miller. Okay. What else? What else?
Supplies
No, this other stuff. Yeah, Big Boss is not. He's not saying right. When he was sent on the mission to shoot those kids, he probably did it because that was the mission. Ocelot is Miller. Ocelot trains both Liquid and Solid. When Big Boss gets told that Liquid is his son, he doesn't want to believe it, so he pretends it's not true. Again, that's the personality disorder. But it is true. Liquid is his son. Eli and Psycho Mantis are in cahoots, and they have been, and they will be until Outer Haven. And they worked together to make sure Big Boss was alive, and they also worked together to infiltrate Mother Base and eventually take the Helanthropus. If you remember the torture scenes when they're torturing Huey, I'm going back to the Ocelot Miller thing. Ocelot injects Huey with truth serum, and then Miller tortures Huey, but that doesn't make sense. That's Ocelot's deal. Ocelot's the one that loves torturing everyone. And even if you go back to Peace Walker, when Big Boss would quote-unquote save all those soldiers and send them back to Mother Base, who do you think was brainwashing them and torturing them so that they would work for Big Boss? It was Ocelot. Miller doesn't make sense. It was Ocelot the entire time. So then Ocelot is actually the one that tortures Huey. And also, when Huey states, what about him? He's been working with Zero the entire time, and he points at Miller, he's actually pointing at Ocelot, because Ocelot is one person. Even though Big Boss may see two, it's just one person. So when he says he's been working with Zero the entire time, he's talking about Ocelot, who was working under the Patriots, and the Patriots are the ones that gave him the orders to go with Big Boss and make sure Big Boss is you know, not getting too powerful. But it backfires on them because Ocelot then starts working with Big Boss as well. And then Ocelot is also the one that gets Zero the DNA so that they can clone Liquid and Solid Snake. Ocelot trains both Liquid and Solid Snake. MGS 2 is Ocelot again working under the philosophers to try to create a new Snake, but instead of using DNA this time, they use the S3 program, which is how they create Raiden, thanks to Ocelot. And then MGS 4 is when the Patriots have completely taken over the world, the Patriots AI system, because as we see in Metal Gear Solid 5, during the war of Big Boss and Zero, Big Boss, Ocelot, and Huey actually incapacitate him and make it so that he can't move can't talk and he's in a vegetable state. In the Skullface mission, when you shoot his legs and you shoot his arm, and then Ocelot is like, let him suffer. That was him, you know, also working with Zero and trying to make sure Zero doesn't die. But then Huey kills him. Huey puts him in the comatose state by putting the bullet in his head, and that's why Zero's in a comatose state in Metal Gear Solid 4. And back to Metal Gear Solid 4. So the Patriot AI, which is built by Zero after Big Boss puts him in comatose. The Patriot AI basically takes over the world, and his rendition of what he thought the boss's will was, because the whole reason this war starts is because Big Boss and Zero, aka Venom, Snake, and Skullface, have different ideas of the boss's will. At the end of MGS 3, the boss gives this amazing speech about what she believes the world should be like, and both Zero and Big Boss go about different ways. Big Boss tries to do it by making the entire world an army. Zero tries to do it by taking over the entire world. That's why when he gives that big speech about getting rid of English and making everybody and their neighbor, you know, turn to one another, that's what Zero was trying to do. That was his plan. That was his way of interpreting the boss's will. So in MGS 4, Zero's AIs have continued to do this. And they've won because the entire world is under one army, the PMCs or whatever, and everybody's under that army. But unfortunately, well, not unfortunately for Zero and for his AIs and his interpretation of the boss's will, many rebel groups have popped up. Now the rebel groups aren't, they're nothing special. They're just normal human beings who don't want to be taken control by a world army, you know. So they rise up and they form their own militias. And the Patriot AIs see that this is a problem for the world, and I'm guessing something like the UN sees it as well, and the philosophers definitely see it. So basically what they do is they make Ocelot pretend to be the person that's controlling the entire world army, and then they send Solid Snake to kill him, which is, again, a parallel to Metal Gear Solid 3, in which Big Boss kills the boss, because Big Boss killed his mentor, and now Solid Snake has to kill Ocelot, who was actually Miller and is his mentor. And just like Big Boss thought the boss was a traitor and this, that, and the other, Solid Snake thinks Ocelot is a traitor and this, that, and the other, when he isn't. He's just been working for the philosophers the entire time. He never really played Zero's side. He never really played Big Boss's side. He was always working under the philosophers and trying to make sure that the world wasn't fucked up because of what happened with the boss and the boss's will and the boss's legacy and whatnot. So that's why when Solid Snake kills Ocelot at the end, they have that moment where like Ocelot is kissing Solid Snake in the cheek, and Ocelot is giving Solid Snake the syringe. Like, if you, there's a point in like the last part of Metal Gear Solid 4 where if you die as Solid Snake, Ocelot will bring you back to life. He wants Solid Snake to beat him. He's on the same mission that the boss was in Metal Gear Solid 3, where he knows he's going to die. So that's what that is. Sniper Wolf's death in Metal Gear Solid 1 is a direct reference to DD and Quiet in Metal Gear Solid The Phantom Pain. Huey probably didn't kill Strangelove. I'm not 100% sure about that, but he probably didn't. It's probably in the same vein that what happens to Hal, because like I said, a big theme of the Metal Gear Solid is that you follow your parents and stuff like that. So Hal, it wasn't Hal's fault that Sniper Wolf died. It wasn't Hal's fault that Naomi died. It wasn't Hal's fault that Emma Emmerich died. So it probably wasn't Huey's fault that Strangelove died. Just that again, you're seeing everybody's phantoms. Big Boss is insane, so there's a good chance that the story that we hear from pretty much everybody but Huey is bullshit, because Huey's the only one out of everybody that's calling bullshit in this game. Everybody else is just like agreeing with the boss and going with it, probably due to Ocelot's torture and Ocelot's mental manipulating. because Ocelot is manipulating everybody. As soon as a soldier touches down on that base, Ocelot is manipulating him. So basically, Ocelot is torturing everybody and manipulating them, and the only person he isn't able to break is Huey, and Huey doesn't buy none of that shit. So Huey's probably the only one that sees the truth. You can't really trust Huey's tapes either, and you can't trust the stuff he says either. But if there's anybody I think you could trust, it'd probably be Huey, especially in the scene where he puts on Kojima's glasses. That means that Huey can see the game like Kojima sees the game, whereas nobody else in the game can see that, because everybody else in the game doesn't realize that things aren't what they're supposed to be. You see what I'm saying? So basically, I think that pretty much covers it. I don't know if I forgot anything. But I think that pretty much covers it. Let me know what you think. I know there's some time left in this video. Feel free to sit back and watch it. This is like my 4th time trying this, so I'm just going to end this now before it messes up. V for victory. I hope you enjoyed the theory. I can't take credit for it. I'm not the one that originated it. Definitely Homura was one of the persons that I first read about it, and I know there was other guys and women on Reddit that were posting about it. So yeah, this game is the war between Big Boss and Zero. This is what we expect it to be, but Big Boss is insane. So we get an insane version of it. But it is what it is. It is what it was supposed to be. And I hope you can breathe a little easier. If you're a hardcore Metal Gear Solid fan, I hope it makes more sense to you. If I'm missing anything, then I apologize. Like I said, this is like my 4th time doing it now. So yeah, the overarching, it's all there. Ocelot is with the philosophers. Now on Big Boss's side, is now on Zero's side. But everything that's supposed to be there is there. It's just very well hidden. So yeah. Y'all have a great day.
You're pretty good. Got you waiting. You're pretty well. Got you waiting. Pretty well. Got you waiting. Got you waiting. Got you waiting.
The weather will clear shortly. Please support helicopter requested.
You're pretty good. 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 You're pretty good.
This is B-Quad. Approaching position.
You're pretty good.
Support
This is
helicopter
B-Quad.
has
I have
arrived.
arrived at marker.
You're pretty good.
Cover fire. In hot.
You're pretty good.
Target acquired. In hot.
You're pretty good. You're pretty good. You're pretty good. You're pretty good.
This is B-Quad. No targets remaining.
Pretty good.
Ending attack run and will stand by an LZ.
You're pretty good.